This person has been dominating the Colonist leaderboards for so long, it's not even funny. Before we dive into his story, we need to zoom out for a second. It's 1995, and a German game designer by the name of Klaus Teuber had released a game inspired by Viking settlers and the Scandinavian landscape, Settlers of Catan. This game would mark a turning point for games as a whole, and specifically for board games. This is not an exaggeration. Some board game players speak of 1995 as, quote, a benchmark in the history of the hobby. Some go as far as to use BC to mean before Catan and AC to mean after Catan. But as people in 2024 or 29 AC, the influence of this game is easy to overlook. But for reference, over 40 million copies have been sold in the past decades. That's more than Zelda, Skyrim, or even Call of Duty. And that's without even counting the millions who play Colonist, the most popular online alternative. So why am I telling you all of this? Remember our mysterious player? Well, it's all going to come back to him. In 1998, our friend Klaus releases the second expansion of the game and what would become by far the most popular out of the many of them. Cities and Knights. Cities and Knights is kind of like next level Catan. There's many more development cards that are now called progress cards, there's city upgrades, barbarians who attack you, commodities, and more. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now that we know a bit of the history of this game, let's fast forward to today. What does the competitive landscape look like on Colonist? Well, with millions of active players, competition is fierce. This is the case for the base game, with top players having only a few rank points of difference among them. And this is, once more, the case for Cities and Knights, where everyone at the top is about one win away from surpassing their immediate competitors. And this is all true, except for one person, Trissy 89. With almost 100 rank points more than the number 2 ranked Cities and Knights player, Trissy is dominating the game in an unprecedented way. And this begs the question, what is his secret? To understand how one person was able to clear competition for the most popular version of one of the most popular games in history, I did a bit of research and I spoke directly with this legendary player. And you probably won't believe some of the things he told me. But first, we said Cities and Knights is like next level Catan. Now, you don't have to be good at CK or even know the rules, but here are some of the differences with the base game so that you can follow along. Instead of 10 points to win, it's 13. Knights are no longer development cards, but instead things you place to move the robber or defend the map against the barbarians. Barbarians? Yep, there's a third dice in CK and half of its sides have barbarians. Whenever they roll, they get one step closer to attack. When they do, barbarians win if there's more cities on the boards than knights, and the players win if there's a tie or they have more knights. Cities on ore, sheep, and wood all give you commodities, cloth, coins, and paper. You can use these to invest in city upgrades which give you perks like Aqueduct, where you get any material you want if one of your numbers doesn't roll, or Metropoly, where you get 2 extra points. Finally, development cards are now progress cards and there's a lot of them. Some examples of the most fun ones are Inventor, where you get to swap 2 numbers on the board, Spy, where you can see someone's progress cards and steal one of them, or Diplomat, which you can use to remove roads or displace your own. You probably get the picture. Cities and Knights is a little more complex than the base game. So how exactly did someone break it down to such a reliable formula? Well, my conclusion is that Trissy is kind of built different. Trissy was born in Sri Lanka and he grew up in the Netherlands. Early on, he had a passion for strategy, but not having too many people to play board games with, he ended up playing a lot of online games like Age of Empires or Knights and Merchants. He discovered Catan at age 19 in 2008, or 13 AC. And instead of learning the base game first and then the expansions like one of us mortals, he went straight into the ever more complex Cities and Knights, and he never looked back. He became obsessed with every aspect of the game and the individual puzzle that each game represents. Cities and Knights became central to his life. So much so that Trissy actually met his girlfriend playing CK in the Colonist community. So, if you're looking for a partner, the Colonist Discord might be the way to go. You have to understand that he has quite a unique standard for being good. For context, I asked him if he considered himself a good bass player, and this is what he said.
Don't consider me as like the best bass player or a really good bass player. Maybe average, but yeah, I won tournaments in MSO.
Mind Sports Olympiad, or MSO, is one of the biggest board game events in the world, and Trissy thinks that winning that is not enough to consider himself even good at the base game. And his other bazillion titles apparently aren't either. This might sound like crazy, but we have to understand Trissy's early success in CK to see why his standard is so high. Now, the record of his tournament and league wins is a little too long for me to list. But although he found success early on, there was a yearning for more. So with all these achievements on his back, Trissy was ready to tackle a new beast, Ranked Cities and Knights. Filled with motivation, he ventured into the largest ranked Cities and Knights player base in the world, Colonist. Rankings on Colonist go by seasons. Each season lasts 3 months and you're ranked based on your rating, which changes after every game. His first season, Trissy seemed unbeatable, quickly climbing the ranks and with an admirable win percentage. However, as the season started to approach its end, Trissy and a fellow Dutchman found themselves very tight, competing for that #1 global ranking spot. And after 3 months of battling, it came down to the last game. With only a couple rank points of difference, Trissy could either win a game or his opponent could lose one for him to claim his spot at the top of the pyramid. And luck was on his side. His opponent was on track to be defeated in his last game, which would cause him to drop just enough points for him to lose his position as #1. However, right as that was going to happen, the clock struck midnight and the season was over.
Oh my god! Oh no! Oh no!
And Trissy had to settle for the #2 spot. And I know what you're thinking. Trissy is Dutch, the player who beat him is Dutch, and the current #2 in the world is also Dutch. What's going on with these Dutch players on Colonist? I don't know. After a few seasons of retirement, being demotivated by his devastating #2, Trissy came back in Season 8 and the story was quite different. He managed to claim his spot at the top of online Cities and Knights and became, as recognized by many, the best online CK player in the world. Trissy hasn't slowed down since. With the added motivation of streaming, he's cruising at the uncontested position we mentioned and it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. Which reminds me, go check out Trissy's Twitch in the description and show him some love. And by the way, if you want to create content or stream like Trissy, check out the link in the description and we'll give you a hand. After learning about his impressive accomplishments, I wanted to know what you're probably also wondering. What makes Trissy so much better than everyone else, at least in the online scene? And what Trissy told me was pretty interesting. 3 things stood out of his strategy that can be translated into CK, Colonist as a whole, or even other games. Number 1, thinking ahead. This might seem obvious, but Trissy has a long-term plan at all times. Now, the important part is that this plan is always changing. While he coached me through a game, he kept asking me, what is your plan right now? And this approach reveals something integral about Trissy's game. Instead of stubbornly sticking to just one strategy, Trissy is constantly thinking about what his most likely win condition is and he's adjusting accordingly. Not only that, but he's doing the same for his opponent's win conditions, thinking who is more likely to get there and how can he affect them. As I understood it, Trissy has over 30 strategies in his mind instead of one that he stubbornly follows. No matter how strong one is, if the game is taking him in another direction, he can pivot. Finally, even small things like the order in which you play your progress cards can vary if you're thinking ahead. For example, let's say you have a wedding card and a saboteur. The wedding card makes all players with more points than you give you 2 cards of their choice. And saboteur makes all players with equal points or more discard half of their cards. Which one would you play first? Trissy says you should play the saboteur first, making them discard the cards that they don't want. This makes it so that when you play wedding, they're forced to give you cards that they wanted. Thinking ahead. Number 2, adapting. Trissy mentioned that the CK meta has been changing and evolving recently as more base players have gotten involved. One of the examples he gave is trading and table talk becoming more prominent nowadays in CK. And he said that if you want to become an incredible table talker, you should watch my table talking guide. Number 3, analyzing. Trissy says that one of the main things that helped him improve was analyzing his games after they were done. He wouldn't fall into the common trap of blaming the dice or bad luck, but he'd ask, was there a different order of operations that would have worked better? For Trissy, CK is like a puzzle. You have to see what order is ideal and what to play when, and you develop that skill by a lot of repetition and consistent analysis. Now, it's likely that you're not willing to go this length to be the #1 ranked CK player in the world. But it's this approach to this historic game that has allowed Trissy to climb above everyone else on Colonist, at least for now. And there's something to learn for all of us. The story of Trissy89 is a story of skill, no doubt. But it's also a story of dedication that is still being written. So you can still watch Trissy dominate the leaderboards on Twitch, or you can try and beat him yourself next season. I'll see you in the next one.